Hey guys, I'm Brittany,
I'm Maria.
and welcome back to the Be More podcast.
Welcome. I'm surprised you remembered our intro but forgot how to record on
Yep.
Zoom.
So you gotta at least something stuck. That's all that
Some
matters.
muscle memory in there.
Yeah,
Have you been?
I've been good. So, like for friends who are listening or watching, we go on these mini hiatuses, mostly because Brittany has the most inconsistent schedule on the
It's
face of
okay.
the planet. And the reason why we went on our hiatus this time is because I was managing a tour for the last two
Hmm.
weeks. And I feel like if you know anything about managing anything and then you take that management and you put it on a tour bus with around 45 people and you live in a new city every day, you'll know exactly how that went.
Oh, dude, how many cities was this?
um, Major cities that we stopped in were in Maryland.
Hmm.
Um, We went to Maryland and Tennessee and North and South Carolina and Georgia and a multitude of cities within a lot of like major cities in those areas. I don't personally ever really want to go back to Nashville. Um, it was
You know,
super
go ahead.
underwhelming.
I've been to Nashville. It is like a one and done city.
Like really need to be a basic boo.
Yeah.
And no offense if you are a basic boo, but like I am not a basic boo. So
Hmm.
I don't see the appeal. And there's a ton of like just not good scenes of homeless people and aggravated and angry people. And very
Interesting.
similar to what's going on in New York right now.
Any
Um,
major city, I feel like.
yeah. So, and then on top of it, like the music scenes are really cool and vibey, but like they're really loud and really intense for no reason. So
I was younger.
yeah,
If I
I'm
go back
old
now.
and I'm good. Um,
Hmm.
but like Savannah is definitely a place that I would go back to
Hmm.
in Georgia. It seems really cool there. There's a lot of history. Charleston, South Carolina was a pretty cool spot. I would definitely go back there. Where else did we go? Asheville. Dude, okay. So for
Yeah.
I've been telling everybody I've never been to Asheville, North Carolina before, and it's been like a real up and coming place over the past like decade. I swear to you, I don't know how anybody else would explain it, but I would explain it as the hipster LGBTQ plus nation of America,
Oh, wow.
capital of America.
That's
It was
cool.
so artsy and
Hmm.
so cool. I found a board game cafe there.
Oh, those pop up every so often. Yeah.
That was super cool.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a place I'd want to go back to and explore, but I feel like I would get really bored of after a couple of days because it is a lot. Their personalities were a lot. And yeah, that's literally all that I remember.
How were your shows? Were
They were
they
cool.
they're cool?
They were
Okay.
cool. They were good. All the
Nice.
we went to like some really cool like baseball stadiums, places I'd never been before.
Oh, that's
Some
fun.
cool like little grungy indie hole in the wall like rock places.
Those are always fun.
Um, yeah, I didn't have to do much with all of that because when you're like I was in charge of everything that was happening outside of when the shows were
Yeah.
happening.
Right. Right.
So I just got to kind of really just enjoy those, but it was cool. It was an experience. I got to do the traveling that I wanted to do, and I don't know what I was expecting, but like there is nothing out in the southeast of America. Like there is
No, dude.
nothing there.
If you went like it's the coast, that have
Right. And
yeah.
that's where we kept like popping too, right? But we were doing a lot of
Hmm.
like inland driving and like there's I I knew that there was nothing, but like seeing miles and endless miles of nothing is
Especially living in Jersey.
it's yeah, it's
Yeah.
so weird. It is super strange. Um Everything it gave me a lot of perspective into understanding why the world is the way the world is, and when I say the world I mean our society. um People really do live in their own little bubbles and they don't have to be around
Isn't it
anybody
crazy?
else.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And when I came back home, like even southern Jersey, even the areas of southern Jersey that seem and And I have driven down there before. Like it should, I guess it shouldn't have been like I don't know what I was expecting, but I guess when we were going on like more of the major highways and we were really driving like through the states, I was expecting to, I don't know, see something different than what I'd seen before. And like, especially driving to Savannah, Georgia, it is nothing on nothing on random plantation on nothing on nothing on nothing. And then you go
Wow.
over this bridge and it's like city. It's
Oh.
such a weird, it's so strange. Asheville was the same way. Asheville was like mountains on mountains, and we drove through the Smoky Mountains, which were gorgeous and like absolutely just surreal. And then all of a sudden, it's like you turn right, and you're like, oh look, there's a town.
Oh wow. I mean, I guess that was like, because I went to California like last month, remember?
Oh,
It was like going inward to Sacramento.
right.
I mean, granted, I was on the highway, but even like within Sacramento, it was just like, okay, like what is here?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
and I was in, I don't know what part of Sacramento, so no one come after me. I have no idea where I was
when
with
you
because
drive.
it is a city.
Like when I think of all the times that my family has driven to Boston, right? You're on major highways and you're going through Connecticut and you're going through you're going through New
Hmm.
York, and like it seems like there's nothing, but it seems like there's life somehow, right? Like there's
Yeah.
still something around, there's still cars, there's still something. And when you're driving through, like North Carolina has gotten much more populated over the
Hmm.
last few years, but like there are certain areas like you're driving these like little honky tonk like roads that are major roads in the highway, and there's nothing
It's crazy.
around. It it's so it really it changed my perspective, and I can't even imagine what it's like to drive through to like Idaho or like another state.
Oh, like the
Or,
Midwest.
yeah, like what the Midwest is like. It was it was weird. It was really weird, and I everyone was way more chill and way more nice, which wasn't surprising at all.
That's not surprising.
But a lot of the younger people on our cast had a really hard time dealing with like the patience of how much slower everything was.
Oh,
And
and this may have been their first time down there,
right.
right?
And
Yeah.
for me, it was like a major breath of fresh air how slow everybody was.
Yeah,
But
the Jersey and those kids
yeah, yeah. Like
came out strong.
we went to this smoothie place, and so we had to do laundry every couple of days, right?
Hmm.
So we go to this smoothie place that's like around the corner, and I was super pumped for it. I was like, all right, cool, let's go get smoothies. So we show up, and there's like probably a third of all of us. So there's probably a good like 12 people that are
Hmm.
walking into the smoothie place. And while we're standing there in line, there's a couple people in front of us. You can see like there's like two or three girls behind the counter, and they start to get really frazzled. And
Oh.
it's taking a while, and like 10 minutes goes by and nothing has happened. We're just standing in line. And I'm like, all right, you know what? We have plenty of time. Like we're on schedule. It's not a big deal. I'm not gonna stress about this. So I go
Hmm.
to the bathroom and I come back out, and the girl who was first from our group was still standing there waiting. And I was like, you didn't order yet. I was like, why
Mm.
did you order? I was like, I understand like Southern slow, but like this, you didn't order yet.
Yeah.
10 minutes. It's a smoothie place. And then the girl behind the counter is like, look, like our entire like system just went down.
Oh.
Can't take anything but cash.
Yeah.
So they start ordering, and they're ordering in cash, and then their whole like their entire system, like they're putting orders in, completely malfunctions.
Yeah.
So then like all of these people that I'm with are, especially the younger people, are like bugging
Of course.
out. And
Yeah.
like didn't they were like, oh well, they can't take my card and I don't have cash, so like I guess that I'm not getting something, instead of like turning around to other people and be like, hey, do you have cash, do you have like
Yeah. Yeah.
no problem solving skills. And it just got very hectic, and this like very exciting, like I'm going to get a smoothie and it's gonna be
Oh yeah.
it turned into
Yeah.
this big stressful situation. And I felt really bad for the girls behind the counter because they were working really
Yeah. I always feel
hard.
bad for.
I because we know what that was like, right? Dunkin',
Yeah.
work at Dunkin', you know what that's like.
Work with any just the food industry, you just feel
Correct.
you
Especially
could
when like
spit in my drink and I'd be like, here's a tip.
like when you're on one side of the counter, right? And like you're fishbowled essentially, like you're
Yeah.
the whole time. So I was like, everybody calm down. Like
Yeah,
everybody
it'll be
will
fine.
be fine. And like that was one of the few moments that I knew that I had settled into like not being overly stressed, because you know how I am as a person in my type A personality.
Hmm. Hmm.
And they were just they couldn't handle like having to wait. Like granted, we did wait like 40 minutes for our smoothies, but at the same time, like we weren't doing anything that day. Like we just had to hang out
Slow it
in an
down.
air
Yeah.
conditioned place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in the middle of like where I don't even remember where we were. In the South. It was hot as hell outside. I don't think I had any moments of like frustration with like how slow everybody was, which was good.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime you brought any type of problem to anybody, they were like smiley and so about it. And I was like, this is so great.
As opposed to like the angsty like tri-state area, like, ugh, you have a
Right. As
problem, so
opposed
do
to like
I.
my developed personality. So it was good for me because now that I've come home, aside from like the utter exhaustion part of it, like I got back to camp and everybody's been in camp for the 2 extra weeks that I wasn't in camp and stuff has gone down and I was just like, guys, like none of this matters. And they got really mad at me for saying that none of it mattered because they were right. They've been in it, like wrong audience. But I've
Mm-hmm.
gotten really good perspective from that experience about what matters and what doesn't matter.
Nothing matters really.
And it's like, right, nothing matters. But um that part was good for me. It just all of the like stress and anxiety that I had to go through to realize that like this is not important. What are you doing? It's been
Mm-hmm.
really good for me.
That's good. I'm glad.
Yeah. What have you been up to the last 2 weeks?
Um, a bad case of mental illness.
No, dude, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Um, so I scheduled my first therapy session for next or this coming Friday. So like that.
Amazing.
So like I found one because like I can't do teletherapy.
Really?
Like
You don't like
yeah,
it?
I just can't. I think it's because I can't talk about my stuff within the space that I live in. I can't commingle that.
Stop. Okay, wait. Go into that more. What do you mean?
I think like because I've tried it back during the pandemic, obviously,
Right.
but I stopped it because I was like, like I had the tools, so I was comfortable enough to stop therapy because clearly it's been working.
Right, right.
Um, but I just felt like not fully 100% there while in therapy because like I'm in the place of trauma while talking about my trauma with the with
Damn.
with the people in the house that contribute to the trauma. you
Right.
know, even though I
Yeah,
was like
it
obviously in my
doesn't
basement back
right. It
then.
doesn't feel like a safe space though. I get that.
Yeah, and like clearly I'm on my own, but also I think internally just I just try and separate the two. So I
Yeah.
found a place that like is taking in person around here.
And you know what?
Go ahead.
I think this is an amazing sense of self-awareness that you have first of all. But I
Mm,
also think
thank you.
this is brilliant because having to go through therapy is a trauma of its own, like
Yeah,
a trauma of its own. And like when you shed all of that stuff in your space, it can linger there, right? Like
exactly. Yeah, and
you
I don't want
don't
it
want to,
lingering.
right? You don't want it lingering in your life where you're trying to heal. And I totally get that. And it's interesting too when I think about it because you have always been a very spatially in tune person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I
Like,
remember I remember like where things happen and how I felt. So
right,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
I can't commingle the two or else I
right.
it gets very
I
confusing living
That
at
is
home.
so cool that you have that awareness, and so awesome that you're like figuring out the way that you need to do it. That's awesome.
Yeah, and like teletherapy is great. The people have more access now than ever to therapy
Yeah,
because like you can text people now, like you can do the
yeah.
whole betterhelp.com situation and whatever. But it's truly just like a individual experience anyway, so whatever works for each person. I just happen to need to go somewhere.
That is so cool.
Because I also used like I tried the car thing, like, instead of like being in the basement of my mom's place, like maybe I'll just go in my
Mhm.
car. Even that though, because like I'm literally still in the same like, you know,
And then you
space.
have to go back there, and you're gonna have
And
moments
also I don't want to like
of
my car is like so therapeutic. I don't need it to be then like, oh, I
right.
solved trauma 1 week in this car. Like
Yeah,
I don't
I
need
get
that.
that. I totally get that. That's so funny.
So I was in a dark space for a bit. I don't know. As days go on, like I get more nihilistic, so I'm like, it really doesn't matter. Like nothing matters, which isn't like the best, but it's not the worst, you know?
I concur.
Yeah. So because I've also noticed that like if I am well, like mentally stable, it's I get to the same conclusion like, oh, literally nothing matters. It's very
Yeah.
just nihilistic. Like,
I think that have you heard of this? I haven't watched it yet, but I think it's really funny. Have you heard of the show Everything is Trash?
no, what is that?
There's like a new show coming out called Everything is Trash that like makes fun of the
Hmm.
fact that like the world is pretty much at its starting its end phases and that like nothing literally this conversation we're having it seems like I haven't watched any of it yet. I think that so many of us this is what right this is what the culmination of disenfranchised grief,
Yeah.
consistent just burnout
Burnout. Yeah.
looks like. This is what it comes to, right? The people who are passionate, the people who care the most, the people who are the empathetic people are the ones who get to this point where we're like,
Eh.
this is
Like,
more.
like what do I do now?
Yeah,
Especially with monkeypox being around now.
that was something that I was worried about being in the South too, because I was like, well, I know a lot of stuff is going on down here.
It's wild.
Oh,
Like another thing after another, and I'm just like, well, and then the heat wave up here. I don't know if
yeah,
you
I've
were,
heard about
yeah,
it. Yep,
my God, dude. That also just caused just exhaustion in the
yep,
body.
yep,
The world may be ending, and you know what? Again, nothing really matters. So,
yep.
but like it's funny because like all these things are happening, right? Like all these like endemics or pandemics or whatever, and like heat waves and climate change, and then all of a sudden, like NASA gives us like this huge like picture of like here's the universe,
Oh, I
billions
didn't
of
see it.
you
Mm,
did it.
no,
That I think that also contributes to everyone's like, what does what matters anymore? Like,
I
look at all
mean,
these galaxies out there. Like, this is we're just
isn't
a
the
speck.
whole point of existence as a human is literally just to figure that out, right? Like this is why
Yeah,
I said this is why a couple episodes I made the comment that like I don't think that our level of intelligence is a gift. I think it's a curse because the fact
because
that
then
we
now we have all this stuff.
the fact that we're so capable and so able and when you look at the greater scheme of like where we fall, we still don't matter. Like
Or
that's
maybe we're in a simulation and it still don't matter.
right, exactly. So it's just like I think that those are the moments that I think help ground me when I do feel overly anxious and when I do feel
Hmm.
a lot of anything to be
Yeah.
able to say like this super doesn't matter. I don't think do you ever find yourself like worrying or being afraid of the fact that something like that it doesn't matter? Do you ever find that being like a thing that induces anxiety for you?
I think it depends on the context. And right now in general, like not really, but like maybe, well, so obviously I'm very career like driven. We both know this. But when I get into those moods where I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like this doesn't matter, then I'm like, what am I doing with my life? You know, like I'm not like being an accountant isn't like a fucking lifesaver. I mean, it could be depending on your situation, but also I'm like,
Right.
I know the work that I'm doing. Sometimes I'm like, what does it matter? And then that freaks me out.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
I understand that. So like the when you think about it in the smaller scope of your life, it freaks you out.
Yeah.
I get that
Yeah.
better.
But then when it comes like, I don't know, worldly things, not that
The grander scheme of things.
I'm like, what does it matter? Like, or like
Yeah.
even people freaking out over things. I'm like, what does it matter? Like, it's fine. Like
Yeah.
nothing's, it's not
I
that big
think
of a deal.
and I'm definitely in the same way. Like I can use the having the larger perspective and being able to zoom the lens out and be able to see everything right in the
Hmm.
scale of where I fit in there is definitely grounding for me to be like, oh, well, what's the point? Like this
Hmm.
doesn't make a difference, right?
Right. Right.
Then if I get too zoomed in and too overly focused on
Hmm.
myself is when I start to do all of the things that induce the anxiety of like, what
Yep.
am I doing with my life? How am I going to make a difference?
It's an existential crisis.
And right, exactly. And I think that so much in our conversations we've talked about. I mean, our world, so many of the issues of our world are that too many people have been programmed to be hyper focused on just themselves, right? Hyper zoomed in
Hmm.
on just having those existential crises all the
Hmm.
time, and not enough of our world is zoomed out and able
Hmm.
to like adjust perspective onto like, does this really matter? And I think that there's danger at both ends of that, right? Like
Oh yeah, 100%.
there's complete isolation and like disengagement if you're zoomed out too far, and there's honestly, there's isolation and disengagement if you're zoomed in too far too. And I think, I don't know, I would like to argue that we use it well in the fact of like, if there's something crazy and major and something that's way too zoomed in going on, we have the ability to zoom out.
Hmm.
If we get too far away from being like, well, does this really make a difference? We can zoom in and be like, well, I can do something about this for this person right now.
Right. Yeah. Like it really depends on the context.
Yes. And I
That's
think
all.
it's super on the day to day. And I think that for all the ways that being human and having the emotional intelligence that we do and the ability to think that we do sucks, we
Hmm.
can use it as a superpower to be able to navigate the fact that like you just said, like the shit is going down right
Yeah,
now.
shit's going down.
And
Yeah.
shit's going down. And shit's always going down, but there's a lot of shit going down at once right now. So I think that we can use this ability as a superpower to be able to navigate the situation so that
You don't go
regardless,
crazy, to be
right, so that
quite
we don't
honest
go
with you.
crazy and that we don't do any more harm.
Yeah, like climate change, like obviously is real. We've felt it. I mean, if you're in Jersey, damn, that heat wave was brutal. But there are ways to like deal with it in uh like a sustainable way as opposed to freaking out one day and doing all you know how like people get freaked out, do all their research and like advocate within like the same week and you're just burnt out.
Yeah.
Like there are sustainable ways to do that,
And
you
this
know?
was the stance
And
that
like
I literally, the stance that I took when we were talking about everything with like the Roe
mhm,
versus Wade situation. This is exactly what I was
yeah.
referring to.
Like there are sustainable ways to like yes, it feels like nothing matters because you can't help it. You can't help any of these like bigger issues, but like there are things that you can do in the long run.
Yeah.
It's just like the instant gratification situation with agriculture is so like even with like all these things like Roe v. Wade and like climate change and all this stuff like you want instant gratification but like you can't with this stuff like
Right.
it's a long like it's a lifetime like thing that people can't like think about. That's the
Right.
issue.
I have a hard time wrapping my head around the concept of like, and we've only really started doing this over the last couple of decades to make people feel like they're important.
Hmm. Yeah.
Once you tell somebody that they're important and they start to believe that they're important, and it's not even like I don't think it's an I'm important on like an internal, like I have my own purpose kind of greater connection to something else. I think it's like a I'm important, like very superficial outside of yourself sense of like a very ego driven sense of being
Hmm.
important. So
Hmm.
once you drive that into somebody and then you put this major problem in front of them and they do all this work and put all this effort in because they're so important and then that importance can't do a shit thing to change the situation, it's very defeating, right? And it's
Yeah,
very
because there's no like tangible thing that you can see.
right.
Yeah.
And it's confusing to have like to be told that you're important and then not be able to make a difference.
Yeah, it's like with everyone saying go vote.
Right. Right. And it's
Yeah.
not no, that's
I'm not saying no, don't vote. I'm saying please do vote.
right,
It's
right.
just
But
like, do more than that.
but it's not even about the whole point of wanting for people to vote is for wanting people to be more awake and aware of what's going on around them
Hmm.
and figure out what their stance and their viewpoint and their
Yeah.
beliefs are on the things that we're voting on, right? The point is not to just tell you go vote because we need you to vote because we need your votes to count for something. I mean, that is part of the point. But
Hmm.
the major reason behind it, and maybe this is the way that we should change the messaging about this, is more to say, wake up and start realizing what you believe in and start realizing what's going on around you and start having your own belief systems and not being influenced by other people. That it's the same thing. Like the intentions are good, but I
Yeah.
don't think that as humans we've really understood how words carry so much weight and words carry so much meaning. And sometimes when we try to like turn things into catchy slogans, we ruin the fact of whatever the point is of what we're trying to get across. Like, we don't say, literally just based on the argument that we just were
Hmm.
presenting, we're not saying you're important because you matter in the grand scheme of things. The reality of the situation is 99% of us as humans don't matter in the grand scheme of things. And honestly, even as a race, we don't matter in the grand scheme of things. So I guess none of us really matter. If this is a trigger for you, I am sorry. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that if you look at it as a very like from the outside as a piece in the puzzle, you make a difference. Like you're important. That's not the case. Like you have to figure out it's not so much the statement of you're important, but like the question of like, what's your importance?
Mm-hmm.
What's your purpose in this life? Like, you have to turn into yourself and figure that out to know what, like, you're important and be able to say that for yourself, to know why you're here. Otherwise, life sucks. But if you walk out into this life believing that you have some sense of importance just because you exist, like that the galaxy, the universe needs you, you're living a really false and screwed up life, and it's going to be really frustrating for you to live, especially in our society where our systems are at play to constantly tell you that you don't matter. So,
And that's all ego talking.
right, this is what I'm saying. So it's like
Yeah.
the statement "go vote," or like that your vote matters, or that you're important. It's not, I don't believe that it's intended necessarily for you to just take action. It's intended for you to start fucking using your brain and building your awareness and developing your belief systems and your perspectives, because when you do that from the outside, you start to impact the tiny little existence bubble that you have, the
Mm-hmm.
people around you, and that's what can make a difference, and that's why you're important. It's not that like climate change is happening, and if you just decide to recycle one plastic bottle, like that, you're going to change the whole world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
perspective of understanding, that uninflated ego perspective of understanding, is what's intended in those words, and I just don't think that we do a good job of clarifying that enough. And
It's just bad marketing.
right, and for all the shit that we're so good at marketing,
The important things don't get the budget. That's what
I
that
have to
means.
tell you,
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten to the point where I'm just disgusted by the way that the marketing systems function.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand how it's possible for them to do what they do.
Oh, when they're selling their product or service.
Right, that they can say whatever they want, and there's no one. You know how many friggin' commercials I've seen where it's like, we're the number one this, or we're the number one that. Like, you want, it makes me laugh all the time. Like, how are Verizon and T-Mobile both the best mobile services in the nation?
Because there's a little asterisk that you don't
They
see in the
say it
background.
slightly
Yeah,
different, right?
different.
Verizon will be like, we're the number one in the country, and T-Mobile will say that they're the nation's best.
Yes, exactly. Like it's all in the wording.
It's just, and I just don't.
Whatever sells the product or service.
Why is it okay for us to just be lied to? Like, why is
Of
that?
capitalism. It's truly just
And the shit that
whatever.
doesn't, like, the shit that doesn't matter, whatever, but like the shit that's important, we're still getting lied to about. So I don't understand.
I don't know. I don't have an answer. It's
And
all
this is
capitalism.
exactly why when I speak truth to people,
Hmm.
they don't want to hear it. Or they're
Oh,
mad
well,
at me for it. I saw so much of that in my 11 days with
on the road.
people who don't really know me very well.
Mm.
Mind you, we know that I'm abrasive and I try to pull back. I was trying to be, there's some situations where I was not.
You're calmer than, you know.
I used to be, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially younger generations have no capability for handling truth.
It's they have no capability of handling anything other than their opinion.
Right. I was
Yeah.
told a very painfully truthful statement that the upcoming, and it's disgusting, but the upcoming generations, when it comes to figures of authority, just want to do whatever they want to do and want you to be okay with it.
Oh,
And if
yeah.
that's not the case,
Oh, yeah.
they're like public enemy number one. And I was like, oh shit,
Oh, it's brutal.
oh shit, so true.
And like it's frustrating in a professional setting. It's frustrating,
Right.
obviously.
Correct.
I'm not saying the old system of like, you know, authority figures may be 100% the best thing, but in
I
a
don't
place
disagree with you.
in a place of work in my industry, that's it. We have experience
Yeah.
more than, you know, an intern to whatever first, second year,
I mean,
what have you. So it's like, what I will commend you if your suggestion is the greatest. obviously. If it's better than mine, like great, you thought outside the box, whatever. But
Right,
like,
right. Which there's a lot of that.
if not, there's no way that you can in the world of accounting of technical experience and skill, there's no ways, there's no like deviation from 1 + 1 = 2. You know
Right,
what I'm saying? Like
right. You don't have to reinvent the wheel just because you think that you're important enough to.
exactly.
Like
So it's that thought process is frustrating.
I know, I mean, I feel like we really grew up in the last generation that really dealt with like consequences as children, right? Like having to deal with authority. And I know that our growing up with that, and we obviously have seen this as a country with what having severe authority for the sake of having severe authority
Hmm.
to people. I have an issue with authority now as an adult.
Oh yeah,
I'm
I've
like,
always had an issue.
don't look at me, don't talk to me. I'm gonna fight you immediately. Like, not for the sake of like I'm right, but for the sake of I refuse for you to be right because I think you suck. Like that's how my relationship with authority is. And I don't obviously think that the way that we grew up with authority is right, or the way that like systems of
Mm,
authority function in our country is right. But I also don't think that it's right for
absolute nihilism.
right for there to be absolutely no sense of any type of authority, or to think that there's anything out there that like
Like you are the one ruling your own life and no one else
correct,
matters. I
correct,
it's such like a like authority is needed obviously to an extent. Like
yeah,
no one can be like a dictator over your life, but also
right,
like there are cases, professional, personal,
yeah.
what have you, that like you need authority.
And I think that I think where we get mixed up, and I think where it gets lost so much of the time, is that
Hmm.
coming back to the statement that I was told, right? Like being able to do what you want and having no one say anything about it. The whole
Yeah.
intent of having authority is the fact of like, if you're doing something that we know is going to cause harm to you or cause harm to the greater sense of like community or cause harm to like whatever is at play, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the reason why authority exists. It's not to tell you that you can't, it's to protect you from what could possibly happen.
Right. It's all a protection thing, but then, ego gets in the way.
Correct, right. And I think like the way that I've been trying to, and I've been thinking a lot about this, especially after coming back, because in the position that I was in, I had to be a figure of authority in making sure that certain things were happening, or and then making sure that certain things weren't happening. But I think that it all comes down to, and I would have responded differently, and I do respond differently to authority that explains their intentions to the extent
Oh yeah.
up and like have the relationship to understand like I'm not telling you what to do because I want to tell you what to do. I'm telling you what to do because this and this needs to happen, and if you do that, X, Y, and Z will happen instead. And like
And honestly, that's the best way.
right, like communicating it, not just authority for a sense of authority. I mean, there are those moments where people really piss me off, and I'm like, because I friggin' said so. Like that's enough. Like I'm
That
done with the conversation, and I think that comes into play certain places too, because I remember being raised on that.
I also think though, the obviously over communicating is the best, I think.
Right,
I would
exactly. There's
rather.
a balance.
And I also think that I've learned that even if the intention of your authority is also selfish, like say I'm the authority figure, but then there's also someone, I'm obviously middle management, so there's obviously someone above me and below me. So sometimes I'll explain something and be like, I'm gonna get ripped if you don't do this. And
Right.
like I'm telling you this so that we're full transparent. And I think it works better that way because then
Yeah.
there's your 100% transparency. Like
Right. And
I'm doing this,
exactly.
I'm doing this to you because it is very selfish of me, but like that's just how it is. And then
Correct. I
it's
mean,
better for them to hear it.
and that's not your fault, right? It's
No, it's
the
just
system that's in place, right? That's been built
yeah.
on that. And I think that there is something to say for the fact that being transparent about that, right? Like,
And that's all they need
I need you to
sometimes.
do this because if you don't, here's what's going to happen, and it's going to suck for me, and it's going to suck for you too. Like,
So we're all gonna, do this together
yeah,
or not.
just being able to have, and I think there's a sense of relatability that you build in there where like you're not
Yeah.
on a pedestal and far away when you humanize yourself in those situations.
Yeah, it's just very yeah. It's so simple though. It's literally just like know your audience and, play to that, I guess.
And I wish it was as simple as what we're saying, but
I
I
know.
that's not. But I think
I know if you're the president of the United States, there's very many audiences.
right,
You're gonna piss off
right.
all of them.
It's just it's hard to be in a world where
Oh, shit. Hmm.
so the generations coming up and people coming up really think that they're so important and that nothing around
They're
them,
so
they're just already in their own universe. And then you're
yeah.
trying to be an authority, be a guiding light to somebody that's like, hey, F you, I don't care. Like, I'm going to learn everything that I need to learn on TikTok and I don't need to look at your face or hear what you're having
TikTok,
to say.
YouTube, yeah.
And sometimes that relationship to the non-tangibles of the internet
Hmm.
is so strong and overpowering and addictive that they don't even know how to build, like how to even start building a connection to a real person to be able to balance off
Whatever.
whatever separation there is there. It's just, and then it's really easy to fall into those traps of everything we've talked about where like,
Hmm.
well, nothing matters. Nothing matters, but I matter.
Yeah, it's like a paradox.
So
That's
weird.
what that is. It's just a paradox. It's like in the grand scheme of things, we're gonna die in a few years, so like what does it matter? But also like right now in this instance, I'm getting pissed off and like everything matters.
Right. And I 100% know those feelings where you get
No,
pissed.
100%.
It's so funny how like the ego and the emotions have no connection at all to like
Like reality is weird enough, and then dealing with your own individual thing, it's just like
yeah.
it's so
We
confusing.
all live in our own sense of what reality is, and that
Hmm.
is just
That's the cause of many issues.
correct. We're all living in our own it's
Everyone needs to go to therapy, is what
all
that
living
means.
we're all living in our own sense of reality. And even like that
Yeah, it's
I'm
problematic.
we're gonna have a real sci-fi moment, right? If you think about all of the versions of realities that exist as a human,
Hmm.
right? And then you imagine all the versions of realities that live and exist to the extent of like the universe based on the way that all the humans see their own reality.
Hmm.
Like, ugh, they're just infinite. This is where we get into like the multiverse friends and the
This is where you get into watching everything
infinite.
ever all at once.
Yes, yeah, the infinite timelines and all that's possible. You're 100% correct. Um,
I love that movie still.
it is it is very interesting, but I will tell you this. My reality now includes like some perspectives of what it looks like to live in the South. And I think
Hmm.
the more that each of us continue to expand, because I learned some stuff that I wouldn't have learned if I hadn't done and had that experience. So I think that the more that I'm gonna stand up on my little soapbox right now.
Sure.
The more that each and every individual takes the time to expand what their reality looks like to include other perspectives and other people and a little bit of freaking empathy, that the whole it doesn't matter in the moment, we can make better decisions that will have an impact that will matter.
Yeah, because then other realities, like not directly, but like seeing other like ways of life
Mm.
will give you just this. It's really just empathy or sympathy, whatever.
That's really what we need. Do you need to watch you need to watch Solar Opposites. Jen and I just finished watching the last
Mhm.
season, and there's a lot of like really funny stuff related to it's about aliens who live on Earth and are like super
Oh,
sarcastic and totally jaded, and it's just the best parts of ridiculous. Um,
hmm. Hmm.
and there are literally 2 episodes that are in the season we just watched that are about exactly this, about being empathetic as a person and about like the multiple
Hmm.
realities and like the end. It's totally friends who haven't watched it definitely go watch it.
I've just been watching Drag Race. I'm not gonna lie.
Drag Race,
Yeah,
RuPaul's.
yeah, RuPaul's Drag Race.
I haven't watched that in forever. I used to love
The
that.
new season is so good. It's an
I need to
all-star
get back
season.
into it.
It's an all-star season, and it's all the people that, or not all, but like, they brought back winners from previous seasons. So it's like they've won already. So it's like the way they edited the show, this problematic the way they edited the season, but it's very fun in the fact that like no one gets eliminated and they're all winners. So like there's no pressure.
Ooh, so there's just
So I'm like, oh, this is so refreshing because every other season's like
yeah, the same.
so much sass. And I'm just like, yeah, yeah, it's devastating because I'm like, no, I like that person, or no, like no one gets eliminated. It's just like they all go, and then whoever is like, most wins and
How
whatnot. So
many
it's like All Stars, that was season 7, and then regular seasons, I think there's 14. I haven't caught up to like that
I
the
remember
regular
when they
seasons.
first started that. Man, talk about a really good real life experience of like nothing matters, but like that mattered so much, right? Like
Hmm.
the being able to do that on TV changed the entire world.
Yeah, and now, and I'm in getting into Drag Race because Drag Race Philippines, actually, RuPaul's Drag
Ooh,
Race Philippines is happening August 17th or something like that, or 12th or something.
damn.
So like, yeah, so like me and my friends are gonna watch it, probably do a weekly viewing thing. So I'm like, oh yes, like this is great because
That's cool.
the drag scene in the Philippines has always been there. They just have never gotten like international recognition until hopefully like now,
That's so
So that's
cool.
pretty cool.
Let me know when that comes out, and everybody should watch it.
Yeah, I will tell you. And if you want to watch with me, I have like because it's on a fucking subscription from RuPaul's
Of
thing.
course it
So
is.
like I have it, obviously.
Understandable. Oh man, well, we got into the stuff. Not a
We
surprise
got into
here
stuff.
that Maria and I haven't seen each other for 2 weeks, and we just got right into the stuff.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all.
All
So
the stuff.
hmm
Well, that's all I have. Do you have anything else?
um go cut your hair if you're having traumatic experience because this also helped. I
I
cut my
really
hair.
noticed that your hair was shorter, and I was not going to say
And
anything because you were saying that you were having all your trauma stuff, but I'm happy you brought it up.
because it always happens. If you see me with a haircut, I mean, usually I like get it pretty like frequently enough, but like if you see me with suddenly like without pre-notice that oh, I'm going to get a haircut this weekend, like some
It
shit's
looks like
happening.
very thinned out, like more
Because
than
it is. It is. I got to treat it too, so it looks thinned out too.
mm,
Because like the heat wave really just caused me to be like, I need this
understood.
treated and cut and like whatever, so now it's thinned out. It's
Respect.
great. It's great.
You feel like a whole new person when you do something to your head.
Yeah, and also just like the trauma also lifts. I also got a massage yesterday. This is now just turning into a whole thing.
That is amazing. I'm so proud of you.
I know it's like my parting thing is like do some self-care in like a healthy way. Not like the bullshit
Amazing.
self-care, but also it obviously helps. We got a massage yesterday. So like
Amazing. Good. Everybody go get a massage.
or get a haircut if you need it.
Yeah, to get a haircut, take a moment to have some perspective of like where you fit in the grand scheme of things,
Hmm.
and then think about what your like why you're important in your life and what you can do at that time so that you have a grounded self of importance and not an egotistical sense of importance.
Hmm.
The world needs a lot more of that.
Agreed. Yeah, and also last thing, don't isolate yourself either. Go find some friends.
That's true. Yep, that too.
Go do that. Do that.
Okay. I have no way to don't be afraid to live your best life.
Period.
That is for you.
Okay, bye.